No bullshit policy or red tape. We put the in check the way we used to.
We're going to talk a little bit about On Call. We're going to talk about a couple of things in your career. You've had an incredible career. But I want to ask about your novels. I want to ask about your writing. That's a unique thing that is in your vast resume and is interesting to me just to kind of hear you talk a little bit about where it comes from and where it fits into a busy life.
Well, I mean, it's just, for me, it's an extension of storytelling. I like to think of myself as a storyteller, whether I'm acting, directing, producing, or and this is just another interesting uh, vehicle and discipline for me to express that side. Obviously, you get a little more in depth in characters' minds and history, etc.
Yeah.
But the first series of novels is 5 books, and they're all written to be basically, turned into a movie franchise or a streaming franchise. And I'm just starting my next franchise, which will be endless. So it's just, it's a way of tying back. It still ties back to what my main thing in this industry is, of course, acting and directing and movies and television. So it's just another way of creating some IP and control and being able to explore other avenues from a creative point of view, as well as at this point, I think it's essential for artists to explore as many possibilities as well. The industry is changing. AI is coming up on all of us, and it's going to start, I think, taking a lot of creative jobs away and a lot of possibilities. So I think just trying to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
This is a part of that, and again, having ownership and having a situation of creating a situation where, I don't know how far away we are before AI can really compete with human creativity.
Oh,
Um,
but
I'm
it's a terrifying prospect for people in all fields. I mean, it could
yeah,
replace all of us in a lot of the things we do. Like maybe they'll get an AI to ask the questions I ask. I don't like
no, really,
we're all on the chopping block in a way, and it's the rate at which it advances, you're right, is insane. I didn't expect to go down this road, but now that we are, I'm kind of curious because yeah, the you have morphed. It seems like you started directing a while ago. And was it
yes.
partly coming from this idea of like, hey, I should be more like I should have more arrows in my quiver kind of thing. Like I should be able to do more or change, be a chameleon at times. Like,
Well, it was born out of crisis, and I think we're now facing another sort of existential crisis that will soon become a very physical and real crisis. But it was born out of I was doing a film back in '93, and I was doing everything I could. It was a interracial love story with Michelle Pfeiffer, and I was working really hard. And one day the producers came to me and said, "You look too young to play her lover. We're going to have to let you go." So they fired me. And I was so devastated from that. But I realized at that point that I did not want to. Back then, I used to use the 50 as, the age. And I was like, I don't want to be 50 years old and being this susceptible to things that's so beyond your control that even when
mm,
you are doing the work, even when people are saying you're doing good work, when you feel it and you're being disciplined and you're studying, you're giving it everything you have, that something could be taken away from you that really means a lot to you that easily. And it was very painful. And so I went and I bought a condo from the money that I made on coming to America, but it wasn't quite furnished because I, didn't have that much money. And so I went and in my um depressed state, went and spent a bunch of money on furniture, and then I was like, okay, now what? And then the following week, I enrolled in filmmaking classes at the New School in New York, and I just felt I needed just a 6-week course because the advantage that I had over a lot of other aspiring directors was that I was on set a lot as
Oh
an
yeah,
actor.
yeah,
So I could
sure.
follow directors, I could follow DPs, I could ask cameramen questions, etc. So, but I just wanted to get sort of a good feel of the technical aspects of it. And I'm not saying that 6 weeks is it, but for me, I just wanted to, it felt like I absorbed something. So after that, and I never looked back, and it was actually I've made many not so great choices and stuff that I wish I could do that over. But I will have to say that was single-handedly, one of the best choices I ever made. And I'm still, um, you know, benefiting off of it and thriving and creating, new avenues and new passions
It
and so yeah.
it reminds me that and the novelist story reminds me of a story from Robert Evans's biography where he was in a movie. He wanted to be an actor. He was in a movie and he saw Daryl Zanuck or whatever saying something and he was like, "Oh, that's the guy who controls what's happening." Like I'm just down here at everyone's whim. But the fact that you made that at such a young age, you were like, "That's the place to go." And deciding to go to school in some way to do it. I mean, you're Juilliard trained. You're highly trained and proficient in these things. Some people are just like, I'm just gonna show up and wing it. I'm just gonna go to
Well, I
auditions.
think that's the key, though. I think that's the key. I think the key thing is to be humble when you are venturing into another discipline. I think it's wrong to have this arrogance that, oh, well, I do this, so I can do this. Just because I'm an actor didn't mean that I could direct.
Hmm.
So I took it very seriously. I started really studying, started hanging out with directors, really asking questions. I paid my dues by doing no less than 5 or 6 short films. And so that's how I learned the process. The same thing as a producer. You start learning, what do producers do. You start studying producers. So when I decided to become a novelist, I started going to all the book conventions. I started really reading from that point of view, not just a entertainment point of view, or for something to entertain me. I started studying how authors were crafting the genre. I write in the thriller genre. I started really researching who are the best thriller writers, and so I never assumed that based on me doing one discipline
You had
that was
transfer skills.
automatic admission and automatic transference of talent into this other field. Now, I do believe that they can feed each other and
I
that they
bet.
can elevate your craft. And so as an actor, I am a better director because I understand actors, I understand performance, I understand writing, because I've struggled with words, so I know some of that. I've struggled with writers and knowing that this actor's going to bump on this.
Yeah.
So it does allow me, and then so each medium now feeds each other, which is amazing, but again, not something to assume that this is going to automatically make you good in something else. You essentially, you kind of start over. So each time I go into it, and then I'm always met with, when I first started directing, there was you know uh people were incredulous about it. People were doubtful about, oh, he's an actor, blah, blah. And then you have to, for years. And then all of a sudden, after being in it for years, they go, oh, he's actually a really good director. Okay, cool. Then you jump into the executive producing thing and you kind of start over again, and to a degree. And then you jump into, being an author, and people go, oh, but I've been writing novels now for 12 years.
Nice.
So it's a process. It's a
It,
process, and then you start getting the respect.
but I think it also, I could be wrong, but it seems like it makes you an asset to a team because I'm thinking just about on call, which is what one of the main things we were gonna talk about here. You're in it, you direct some of it.
Mhm.
But because you have those skills, you built them, because you also have producing and writing skills, I'd imagine that when you join the team on something like that, you're contributing in a lot of different ways, like from a leadership standpoint, from a creative standpoint. And with a series like that, it seems like you have so much experience with the procedural in front of, behind, that I think because it's taking that kind of classic Dick Wolf procedural, but moving it into a streaming model and very experimental camera wise and directing wise, you're the right, if you want to bring a Swiss Army knife, on the trip, like that's what it kind of strikes me as. But I'm curious to hear you talk about that and about how, particularly the directing and using like body cam and stuff like that, that these types of shows that you've starred in before, and directed before don't do.
Well, we wanted a different, vision for it. I do feel that this was a great vehicle to combine all of the talent. So, they approached me to direct it, and then I was made executive producer on it, and then I acted in it.
So
That
it was
was
in
the
that
rest.
order of things?
Yeah, so it was
Oh,
directing, producing, and then acting.
so I thought at
Uh,
the end they were like, oh, he's also an actor.
right, right. So, well, but also, I wanted, there's certain projects that you go, this is the one to play with. I was very much inspired by Jason Bateman and what he was able to do in Ozark, and I thought he did an
Mm,
amazing job. And of course, his responsibilities and duties were far greater than mine. But I like being in small classes. I like being in, instead of just a pool of actor or just a pool of director. The more you add to your
mm,
resume and
I
to your
see.
portfolio, the smaller the pool is, because there aren't a lot of people out there doing it on this scale.
Yeah.
So there's like a handful of people that's able to do that. I like being in that pool. My pool gets even smaller by the time you do add author in there. And so the goal one day, of course, is to turn the books into a series or a series of movies and be all of those things. So for On Call, which was a very, very special project and really, really well written, and I saw it. It was an opportunity for me to really create a world and help create a world. I've been fortunate and blessed enough to establish a reputation as a director of being a fixer, of coming in and getting people grounded. But I've always felt my true strong suit would be, and I take nothing away from that because I'm honored there. But I also felt, what happens instead of me fixing something? What if I'm in at the very beginning?
Mm,
And so now it's about establishing the culture of the crew, establishing the culture of storytelling, establishing the culture of acting. And so when you give the right foundation, a lot of times when I come in and do correct things, it's because they have the wrong foundation.
mm,
The actors are operating off of low stakes, not really attacking it. So you come in and correct and you go, hey, well, it'll be more interesting if you raise the stakes here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And then the actors are like, wow, this makes that scene feel much better. So to be able to come in and be handed an amazing script like On Call, and conceptually and having established a lot of trust in the Wolf Camp by working with them over the years, that they said, go, create, do this. We want to go into streaming. It has to be bold. It has to be something that you won't see on network. It has to be,
mm,
but because I always think of the Wolf Camp as being run as a meritocracy.
mm.
It's however, if you're good, you're rewarded. If you show that you are hardworking and talented and smart, and you put more, mainly willing to put in the work. I've been the beneficiary of seeing these really cool vertical moves in my career because of that. And that's my work ethic across the board. It's just great to be involved with a company that sees it, appreciates it, and rewards it.
You don't hear
And
meritocracy label a lot in this business.
no,
So that's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. And so, so I knew I had a lot. And the cool thing about, the really cool thing about On Call was we had to find it. We were experimenting. We had at some point it was, you know, what's the alchemy? How much of this mixed with this will get us this?
Mm,
And then a little bit of this, a little bit. So we had to find the right balance. So how much steady cam, how much body cam, how much dash cam, how much
mm,
studio mode. Like we had, and so we were finding that formula every day more and more, but it really wasn't ultimately until we got into the editing part of it
mm.
that we were saying, oh, too much, let's switch over here, let's do this. And then we found that right measurement, that right ingredient, the right balance of ingredients, I should say. And we always knew we had something special and cool and different and refreshing. And it's a throwback, ironically, to the days of Adam 12. It's a throwback to when dramas were a half hour, because a lot of people have forgotten that, but
Yeah.
many dramas, Dragnet and Adam 12, I think The Naked City, there were many. And
Oh,
so,
the Naked City. Yeah.
yeah,
You're
so
so versed in the history of the medium too. Wow.
well, but it's great to be with, someone like Dick Wolf, who I've worked with now for 30 years.
What was the
Um,
first, if you go back, like what was the first, because you said the vertical climb and the wolf camp in him. When did you guys first kind of meet and interact and like,
well, we met in 1992. As an actor, I did a medical series for him called Human Factor, which was a uh, 10 o'clock Thursday night show for CBS.
Mhm.
And I think we ended up doing maybe 8 or 9 episodes. The late great John Mahoney was the lead in it,
Oh
and
yeah.
so that's when I first met Dick, and I remember going to him, and he told me, he said, "Hey, you don't have as much in the pilot as I would like, but don't worry, I got you." And I said, okay. And so then I get the first script after we get picked up, and I read it, and I'm not in it a lot. So I go to his office, and I open up the door, and he just starts laughing. And he says, "This is the quickest time that an actor has come to complain about." He said, "It's the next script." And sure enough, the next script. And so the reason I bring that up is because from that point on, I trusted him. He
Hmm.
gave me his word. He delivered on his word. So there was trust. I knew it was up to me to take whatever he gave me and to elevate it and to give it back to him and make him always proud of the fact that he was entrusting me. So he was entrusting me as an actor. So I did that. I did another show called Gideon Oliver that he was a producer on. So that was as an actor. And then my directorial debut was for HBO. And then I did the pilot for Soul Food for Showtime. So I was more in the what we were calling cable.
Sure. Yeah, back then.
So,
Yeah.
right. So, but once I wanted to move into episodic, SVU was the first show that I
Okay.
directed. So,
Yeah.
so when I talk about the vertical,
Yeah.
trajectory, it is, little by little, and then working my way up, and then them giving me more responsibility. And then, in Chicago, I did guest stars or directing roles on Chicago Med, Chicago Justice, Chicago PD.
Yeah.
And then after that season, they said, "We really like what you do. We'd love for you to become a producer. Have you ever
Yeah.
thought about it?" And I said, "Of course I have." So, so little by little,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and then just being able to go, and then I've become also the guy that goes, "I'm getting ready to go do another pilot for them." And so it's just like I
Yeah.
said, it's been a very rewarding
But I
relationship.
love the anecdote that built the trust that you showed up, that he said something, you showed up, you were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he was like, I got you. And
I got
you
you.
guys,
And that was it. That was all. That
yeah,
was all that needed to be said. And
yeah,
from that point, and we to this day, we still laugh about it.
yeah,
And it is, but and so, On Call was truly a huge sign of trust and faith, because that show could have gone in so many different directions. And if you don't quite have it, and so we needed great performances, we needed this great style, this great tone, this sense of realism, all mixed in, and we had to throw everything in a half an hour.
yeah.
And so it was a huge endorsement. for me, and I was never going to let them down because I'll work as hard as I have to work,
Yeah.
to make sure that, and that's been our relationship. If you give me the ball, I'm going to do the plays to score the most points to get us a championship. That's my dedication. If you put that faith in me, that's my dedication to you. And so we've had that type of relationship. And On Call to me is, personally for me, it is winning a championship because we figured out something really cool, and we were rewarded with it being, number one in 3 different countries, and people just really having this rabid appetite for it, and being able to most people streamed it in like 1 or 2 sessions, and
Yeah.
it's 4 hours ultimately, so people just ate it up. And so I'm really, really, this is definitely one of the proudest I've been of a project to be associated with, and to be a part of the creation of it.
I mean, it's really cool because it embarks, even though there's elements of it, like you said, that are rooted in a lot of the classic things about the genre and the medium. It's trying to do some very different things in that space, like with changing platform, changing technical things, changing like, and it's about the police. It's about the police in Long Beach. So there's complex issues swirling around some of it too, and delivering for a wide audience because you're in another situation where you're trying to deliver something. One thing people get, these shows are for as many people as possible, which is a challenge unto itself, I think. Um, there's going to be another season. Is it official that?
It's not official. We're
Oh,
waiting for the
okay,
official word. So
okay,
I'm limited to what I can say.
okay.
So
The
let's
internet.
just
So
say,
then the
think,
internet. As I just learned for the 100th millionth time, the internet's not always true. Whatever
right.
it says to you, but well, we'll find out soon. But people love it, and I'm curious what you can tell us about where you'd like to take the characters, or where you've all talked, if you're comfortable talking about that at all. Like
Yeah.
what would be on slate for the
Well, I
future.
think that I haven't seen the showrunners have been the showrunner Tim has been working on what he wants to do, but the conversations that we've had is I want to continue to explore the notion with my character, particularly as a sort of metaphor of what all of this has been, which is it's the perception that we have of people, of colleagues, of this and so, and we operate and we run with it. We
Mm,
hear something on the internet, we run with it. We see
mm,
someone who looks a little differently than us, we run with it. We have these
mm,
perceptions. And life is really about discovering who people really are. And so we had that in my storyline. And I thought it felt very organic and very real.
mm,
I'd like to see, not just for my character, but I'd like to see, like, we had an episode where there was a rich couple and the guy was bound and gagged, and someone said, a Latino kid broke into his house, and come to find out, once you look past the trappings of the home and the rich and all of that and the assumptions and this, you realize that he actually paid for this kid to come over and have sex with him. And so this perception of what a cop is and who a cop is and what a criminal looks like and what Long Beach looks like. That's what I mean by, like, I want to, like, what we were able to introduced with my character. I'd like to see that spread into the
mm,
show more in the way that they write. I think that that's coming. I think that will lead to some really cool exchanges, some misconceptions, some misperceptions of who people really are, and what are the consequences of assumption. What are the
mm,
consequences of running with things? And I think the show is not just about being a cop. The show is about policing a community,
mm,
and then think that there's investment in that. But when you say it that way, because, like, for instance, my character grew up in Long Beach. He was, this, so the neighbor, when some of the crimes happen, he can reference and say, I grew up 5 blocks from where this little kid was just killed. In one of the
mm,
episodes, a stray bullet killed a kid. And I go, I grew up 5 blocks. My mother still lives there. So when we have this type of investment in the community, it's not just being a cop. It's about being a part of the community, and you happen to be a cop in a part of this community.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something, because what happens is it ends up humanizing people. And the cool thing about the show, and I hope we continue. We're not here to tell you to like the cops. We're
Mm.
not here to tell you that you have to root for them as heroes. We're not telling you. We're just simply showing you what it's like to be sitting in that car. We would like the style of the show is to make the audience a voyeur,
Mm.
to do a ride along. And now in
Hmm.
that ride along, whatever opinion you want to have, you can have that opinion.
Yeah.
We're not here to preach to you about, oh, this is not a anti-cop show, and it's not necessarily a pro-cop show. Obviously we have heroes that we invested in, so of course
Sure.
it's going to lean a little bit more that way, if we're being honest. But we're not preoccupied with that agenda. We're more preoccupied with, hey, listen, this is what it takes. These are the kinds of decisions you have to make under
Mm.
these stressful situations. Can you maintain your humanity? Can you maintain fair judgment? Can you maintain? So as much as it might be a supportive hand, I think it's also somewhat of an indictment to police that don't understand the balance that's necessary. You know what I mean? And so if you don't have an investment in the community, if you don't have investment in the people, if you look at an entire community as nothing but criminals as opposed to people in a community that has criminals as well as good people in it, I think you perpetuate this negative view that we
Yeah.
have of police. And so, you know what I mean? And
You
understandably so,
you said something. You said a lot of really beautiful things in all that could apply to much more than On Call and how we view one another in the world. But one thing I really liked is you talked about something I've thought about a lot lately, which is the voyeur thing. You're taking us through the camera and you're putting us in the middle, literally, of interactions and stuff in places we have preconceived notions about, but we don't ever go. Like we never get to be in that car and we never get to be in between the conversation in between those people. And you also turn it a little bit, and then we see, like you said, another side of something that assumptions. So there's something really delicate in challenging assumptions of these kinds of interactions and roles in communities and society that it's a great thing to do with the medium and with this particular genre. We don't
yeah,
see it very much.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And if, and here's the thing, one of the last things I want to say is this. We, we walk a fine line when you're doing something new and different and fresh. There's a balance because you have to make sure that it's organic and not a gimmick.
Hmm.
So we're not doing a show about gimmicky camera stuff.
Right, right.
Everything that we're attempting is to bring you further into this voyeuristic first person point of view.
Yeah.
Everything that we're striving to do is to make you feel like you're really in the cruiser, you're really in that cop car, that's what we strive for. And so otherwise it's just, oh, this was slick, this was cool. Gimmicks wear off, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But this is like, well, okay, here I'm getting ready to go for another ride along. I'm getting ready, so it makes the audience feel more interactive
Yeah.
with this, and that's the key thing. So when you talk about, I want to continue to find ways in the news. Should we be fortunate enough to get a second season, I'd like to find ways to put people even more in that seat to be really
Yeah.
just really really conflicted and relieved, and again still maintain whatever opinion you have of police, but let it be more informed based on what you're witnessing.